What's going on, guys? It's Isaac Beckley. It's a blessing to be here. Thank God I'm alive. Thank God you alive. Thank God we could all be here on earth and to just enjoy ourselves. I'm gonna start another 10-part series. This series is gonna be called Thought Process. Okay? Thought process is what you got going on mentally. Okay? It's about what thoughts you have during the day. What you have over 1,000 thoughts a day. Only some of them you focus on. So if you go to work, your thoughts will probably be concentrated on work related thoughts. If you play basketball or any sports, if you're doing that, you'll be concentrated on sports related thoughts. So it all depends on what you're doing and what your eyes see. Okay? But what makes the difference is what your mind sees. Okay? So what registers in your head when you create a thought? Okay? So if I see a square and I see a circle outside of the square on a piece of paper, and I asked you, what do you think? Some people say, well, it's just a square and a circle. Some people might say, well, shoot, that square is just a square, it's just a piece of paper. Some people might be like, hey, well, the square is smaller. The square is inside of the circle. The square has perimeters, but the circle is bigger than the square. You know, some people just might take it to different extremes and try to figure out the meaning of that, you know? So it's all about the thought process. There's no right or wrong answer, you know? I just said about 5 different answers that probably sound similar. And what you might say, if you do this test to somebody, you might be like, oh, it's just a square. That square is smaller than a circle. And somebody else might say, the circle is bigger than the square. Somebody else might say, you drew the square first, and then you drew the circle. You know, somebody else might say, well, you wanted the square to be smaller than the circle, so you drew the square first, and then you drew the circle around it to make your circle. I mean, them all thoughts. I'm just saying this is an example of thought process, okay? Just to look at a tree. If you give an example, hey, look at a tree. Somebody might, oh, that's just a tree. It's a nice tree. Somebody might say, oh, that's a maple tree, you know? Somebody might say, oh, this is a 50-year-old tree. Look at the rings. It's a thought process. So how you look at things, people might see the same thing but look at it differently. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a thought process. It's what your thought process is. How do you interpret different things that you see with your mind and with your own 2 eyes? Okay? It's an example. Another example is somebody might see a car. You know, somebody be like, oh, ooh, look at that Lamborghini. Somebody might be like, why that person driving that Lamborghini? Ugh, I hate people with Lamborghinis. But you want one though, right? It's a thought process, you know. How you register your thought process. When you see a Lamborghini, that might be motivating. If you see a Lamborghini, that might be destructive thinking for you, you know. So it's all about the thought process. So that's why it's highly important to get your thought process in order, okay? How you get that in order? I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to say it's hard. It's all up to you. But the thing is, you got to have consistent time and concentration. Consistent time and believing what you plan to accomplish. So when you believe what you plan to accomplish, everything around you will have a purpose. Okay, so I could just be like, oh, this is a tree. Well, how can this tree relate to my life? Well, the tree started with the seed, and by natural law, it rains. And where the climate is, that's why the tree grows. It has good soil. Okay, the sun nourishes it, the water nourishes it, and it grows by the year. It might have some branches that fall off, but it has a strong core which makes it stand and still grows. Okay? That's how I look at trees. It's a sign of they sign of growth to me. Okay? So somebody else might be like, hey, well, it's just a tree. Like, what you talking about? Which is true. It's just about your thought process. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just how you think of things, okay? It's all about the thought process. So, just by that example of the tree growth, you might look at a tree differently for the rest of your life. And that's how by natural law, that's how growth is, a tree. Okay? Just look at a tree. Analyze a tree. See how it grows. You see some fallen branches. You might see a couple leaves on the ground, some brown leaves. They go through season. But what happens? They regrow their leaves. They regrow their branches. They outsource them. And they give us oxygen. I mean, it's so much that they give. They in the habit of doing more than what they paid for. You know? So some people might think of that as crazy. Some people might understand that. And some people might use that both as a positive activity for their thought process. Okay? Well, use your environment to your advantage. Okay? So if you believe in circumstances, just say, hey, well, what do I have now? How can I train my thought process on positive thinking to make sure that this process is good for my health, wealth, and well-being? Okay? It's possible. Okay? So it's all a process. It's all a thought. Thought process is a way to understand more of you, to do more what you can do. Okay? It's not impossible. It is possible. Look at a tree. A tree don't talk. A tree blows with the wind. You want to Mother Nature, whatever. But it grows. It started from a seed and it grew. Same thing with you. You can start from a seed. Your thought process can be a seed, but then it grows to a tree and a strong branches and a strong core. You might have a couple of down moments where branches might break, but the main result, you stand strong, you stand tall, and you always help and you give. As long as you give, you shall receive. You reap what you sow. God bless.